Hey everybody, welcome to another review on the channel. We're here today to look at a game called Fade. You can find this on Steam, developed as a solo project by Night by Night. You'll find more information about them in the description. This is a third-person action RPG that I think everybody should keep an eye on, especially if you're a fan of Souls-like games. I think you'll find a lot of enjoyment, even in the demo. This it seems really promising. So it's currently available on Steam for just about $5. It's in early access, but I think that there's a lot of foundational elements here that when iterated on, when built on, and hopefully they continue to, or the developer continues to be able to develop the product. I think it's going to be really promising and fit into many different gameplay styles. If you're a fan of Elder Scrolls, I think there's some interesting things here. Again, third-person action RPGs. If that's your bread and butter, this is a game you should check out. The developer did take a long hiatus. I'm posting this on New Year's Day, 2024. It seems like they were gone for quite a while and kind of stalled development. For several different reasons. It seems like they elaborate a little bit on their Steam page, but they ultimately decided to switch to a new version of Unreal, which I think was intended to accommodate more players that maybe couldn't fit the initial requirements for the game. And I'll get more into that in a little bit. So let's talk about the character classes and the combat. The demo currently offers 3 classes: a mage, a warrior, and a rogue. Each has a variety of weapons. You have a 2-handed sword. You got some dual wielding going on with the rogue. Each class has a ranged weapon. And the mage obviously can use some magic. The combat system is very reminiscent of Souls games. It is strategic, it can be challenging, and it's definitely not a pushover. There's dodge mechanics, you can jump, and you may be able to block, although I didn't find out how to do so in the demo. Okay, so according to the Steam page, Fade is a narrative-driven action RPG. It combines the Souls-like combat and some story elements from games like Fable and Full Metal Alchemist. There's clearly some story development here. You get the impression that there's some mystery here. The text descriptions kind of allude to different nations, different races, different background stories for each of the character classes. And so, this isn't a bare bones product. This isn't a shell of a game. It's got some thought put into it. And I think it initially had a previous version for release that maybe saw some drastic changes in the past. And so beyond the weapons that are available in the demo here, there are 7 weapon types. There's a mastery system involved. There's going to be crafting with blacksmithing. I'll get to that in a little bit. And there's going to be side quests as well as a main narrative. So in terms of what we see in the demo, okay, the user interface is functional. It's got flavor to it. It looks cohesive. Although I would like to see some contextual overlays, some mouse overlays, particularly on stats to explain how they impact your character. I'd also like to see some item comparisons. So if I pick up a sword and it's got 2 damage more than the one I currently have equipped, I'd like to see that reflected in the UI somehow. There are some UI bugs currently. I did see that, particularly with the bow, if you run out of ammo, sometimes it'll reset to 50. It'll show you have a ton of arrows. And then also when you go to draw the weapon and you aim it, the target reticle, it sometimes shows up, sometimes does not. And that makes it kind of confusing when obviously in a Souls-like game, you're trying to be strategic with your movement and with how you use your weapons, and there's a stamina mechanic, and so that UI bug really, I think, hampered some of my ability to be successful in some of the combat in the demo. There's also 2 hotkeys for the inventory. I don't know if they're bound to different tabs in the inventory, but they both brought up the inventory O and P, so I don't know if that's intended or if eventually they'll be mapped to different parts of the inventory or character page, okay? In terms of sound, The music, sounds very fantasy driven. It's kind of very reminiscent of the Elder Scrolls series for me and Jeremy Soul's work. Um, it's serviceable. There seemingly are only two tracks in the demo, um, and the reason I bring this up is because you're either in combat or you're out of combat, and the tracks don't seem to transition very well. There were many points in the demo where I felt like I didn't have any aggro and I wasn't around any enemies, and yet the really intense combat music was still playing. Um, and beyond that, the music is also very loud. You can't currently change the settings in the game. That's one of the first things that I like to do when I get into a game. I like to adjust the sound to more to my preference, and not being able to do that, really made it a little frustrating. I actually had to dial down the gameplay sounds for the video just so that I can make sure that you could hear my voice. So hopefully in the future, as they iron out the engine changes and how they're going to optimize that, I'd like to see them kind of fine tune that a little bit. Okay. But the sound does add the sound effects do add weight to the gameplay in terms of swinging your weapon and hitting metal and hitting stone and hitting the enemies and casting the mage casting their spells. All of that sound design I think was really well done. Again, for a demo and a solo project. So going into the gameplay, I did discover that you can destroy objects. There were many barrels that you could, swing your weapon and destroy. Although I didn't see that you could pick up any objects out of those barrels. There was nothing dropping. I don't know if that's a planned feature in the future. But there were also chests, so you could at various points in the demo open up a chest. They did have loot in there. It seemed like copies of what you already had, so I didn't necessarily get any upgrades. And then at one point, I got an item that was labeled as chest armor, but it was very clearly like boots. And so, again, some further polish is probably needed there. I also saw that there's a shrine saving system, which I think is obviously very useful in a Souls-like game where you're likely to die or you need a checkpoint system, because that can be very frustrating to have to obviously start over from the very beginning. In terms of what's planned for the future and the gameplay that necessarily maybe wasn't in the demo, I'm excited to see fishing show up, which the Steam page says is coming. Blacksmithing as a crafting option. Again, maybe an opportunity to craft more powerful items than what you can find in the world, or maybe what can drop off of bosses. And something called aura shifting, which that sounds very kind of fade, dependent in terms of what that means in the context of the game. And I'm interested to see or read more about what aura shifting is, and maybe it's some sort of magic system or it changes your character in some way. So, ultimately, guys, is the game worth buying right now? It's only $5. It's early access. You get a feel for what the game is going to be like. I say if you're willing to support a solo developer, you're willing to shell out a couple of bucks to just keep tabs on the project. And I think if you spend the $5 now, which currently I think it's like $3.50 for a New Year's sale. You get future access to all releases coming down the pipeline. So I think that's really cool. And I'm a big fan of funding projects that they got some legs under them, and there's clearly some work and love put into this project. So a demo is a demo is a demo. There's room for improvement. There's some polish needed. The development is probably not going to be at the pace that you'd see from a large studio, obviously. And it seems like the developer wants to go the Kickstarter route, which you'll find links to that in the description. They dealt with some publishers, but I guess they couldn't agree on the path forward. And so interested to see whether or not the project gets funded. I'll be keeping tabs on it for sure. I think the game holds a lot of promise. It seems like a good addition to the genre, and it has some unique elements to it. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you found the review helpful. It didn't mean for this to be a very long one. There wasn't a lot of gameplay to go through, but I did want people to be aware of this product because I think it's a fun game. I think it has a lot of potential. Go ahead and check out the Steam page in the comments. You see the Kickstarter page also linked down there. And go ahead and leave some comments about maybe are you a Souls-like player? Do you like games like this? Are there games like this that I should probably check out besides the Souls games that are already out there specifically from indie developers? And so I'm, like I said, interested to see where Fade goes. I appreciate everybody for watching. Until next time, guys. Bye bye.